Morning, everybody. It is Cowboy. We're live. It is 8:30 a.m. EST, and we had the FOMC yesterday. Rates held unchanged. All kinds of stuff. I think we just had some data come out right now. So let's go ahead and jump into the calendar on the screen as soon as I share it, and we'll see what just came out. I think it's unemployment data. Every Thursday, like clockwork, U.S. unemployment data comes out, and unemployment claims were a little higher than usual. So that usually means that the dollar is going to get a little weaker and things go up in the market. And a couple of other data came out, but mostly the unemployment matters. And the estimate was a little bit lower than what really happened. So again, if there are more unemployment claims than expected, then wisdom says, okay, well, the economy is just a little bit weaker than we thought it would be, and therefore the dollar itself would get a little bit weaker. And why is that? Well, because if the economy is a little bit weaker than it should be, that means that all the rate hiking and all the machinations that were done over the last few years have been taking effect, right? Finally, okay, things have weakened a little bit, and that means inflation should be going down. That's a big should, capital SH on the should. And therefore, we can maybe expect to see the rates get dropped, right? And that's kind of the wisdom. And of course, anything against the dollar is going to go up in such a circumstance, at least temporarily. And just looking right here at the charts here on the euro, you can see a big candle headed up right there as a result. And that's pretty substantial. It's on the 5-minute chart though. So let's see if it affected something outside of the Forex market. Let's look at Bitcoin. Let's see if it affected Bitcoin on that kind of time frame. Barely, just barely. Bitcoin, of course, took a pretty big spill, was capitulating a bit yesterday. And, I actually had a line. I drew this out and showed Algo Factory customers yesterday that 63 was an important bounce point. You needed to bounce here in order to maintain any kind of bullishness midterm. And certainly it did that so far, right? Nice wick on the daily here. There are several hours yet left in this daily candle, but the fact that price came all the way down to that yellow line and pushed all the way up, that's like a pretty good sign of some strength. Let's go to a lower time frame and see what that looks like right here on the, what is this, the 3-hour time frame. So you can see price really capitulated down short term. Big moves down, very strong moves down, and then bounced pretty hard. This is a pretty good bounce right here. Good chance that price will actually make a continued move up at least a little bit, I would say, to probably 65,600. That's probably where price will go, just as a reaction back up from this hard move down that happened yesterday. So that's just a short-term move on Bitcoin right now. It could keep going down from here. In fact, if I were to take a look at our other screen with the algos on it, yeah, this is it. Let's go over to Bitcoin. We'll see what the high time frame data say. Okay, so yeah, went through, grabbed this liquidity that we marked out yesterday, this yellow box, pushed right through that, which is, expected. Price usually goes to these boxes, oftentimes through. So we need to take another look at the liquidity and see what is going on right now. So let's grab our liquidity report over on the Kingfisher.io. Give us a second to catch up. Okay, so once we take a look at these liquidations, we'll have an idea as to where price might go. And there's a lot of liquidity above price right now. In fact, what do we say, 65,600? Well, there's actually at 66,000 a pretty strong block of liquidity, 66,000 to 66,400. So we can expect price to head up there as long as things remain bullish. So right here is where price may go. It's a nice target right now for anybody who went long at 63. That's a nice target right there. And it's not a bad trade even from now. There's not a lot of risk to reward on that trade. I would look for some kind of a pullback in a lower time frame before I were to go long on that. But that's a decent target for price. There's liquidity up here. There's a lot of reason for price to head up here. And the 618 fib is right below that, like we talked about earlier. So I would look for price to probably today before the end of the day, either head up here or even head all the way up there. Now, if price did reject it downward at this point, then we would be looking at a 61,700 target to the downside. And then there's more liquidity up high on this, a little higher. There are some little smatterings up at 67,200 and 68,000. So we can mark some lines out there. 67, 1 and 68. And these are decent areas for price to go. But, that's a little bit high considering the rest of the market. I don't know the price will make it all the way up there. I mean, the short-term algos do look strong on that, but let's see what the algos say on a higher time frame here. A little bearish on the daily still yet, but the weekly actually has a fair amount of bullishness left in it. So, whatever is happening right now could be temporary, right? If there is a pullback up, and if price were to make its way all the way back up to 68,000, like we just talked about on the other chart, then that would show some promise. And it would also show the price is building a potential range up in this area. I mean, technically, this bounce at the bottom is an indication that a range is building in this area. And of course, consolidations happen before breakouts. So we could be seeing something build in this area as a range. And that would, if things calmed down, the higher time frame is still pretty bullish. And this would be an indication that price is gearing up to head back up. So this bounce that we saw at 63,000 was rather promising for price. That's a good thing for the bulls. Good thing for the bulls. All right. So that's Bitcoin as it stands. Should continue to float upwards at least to like I said, about 66,000. Seems like a decent target for Bitcoin right now. So let's go ahead and move on. I don't see any comments in the YouTubes. I don't see any requests for charts right now. So if you guys have, if anybody watching wants to see a chart, go ahead and ask for it. See, hey, I want to see this chart. I want to see that chart. I might start taking a look here at the indices. I want to take a look at the like the SP 500 and see how all that's reacting to yesterday's rate non-anything. Yeah. Okay, so it looks like the market is already heading back up. There's a double bottom right here. It didn't even quite make it to the high time frame structure. It did. There was a structure shelf right about here off of which price appeared to bounce. And then you do have a double bottom and the market is headed already back up. So you had this right here, this double bottom right there, and a textbook one really. So that being the case, if we were to look at this as a high time frame situation, we might be able to, if I treated this right here as an impulse, and we assumed that price were to continue up after what basically was a 618 bounce, not quite, almost more like a 382, which would mean it's really bullish, then I would be looking at the SP 500 heading up to about 5,850 or even 6,000. I've been talking about 6,000 SP 500 for like weeks. I've been talking about that going back to since it broke 5,000. So, it's on the way, quite possibly. Let's take a look at the higher time frame look here. And let me clean this up just a little bit. Okay. Yeah, everything's still bullish. It just looked like price was taking a break on the way up. So I don't know that it's ready to go all the way up yet. Price might need to wag a little back and forth, but one thing to know about the SP 500 and all the stocks and stuff. Okay, Valgirl, I'll see you want oil. Brad, hey mate, good to see you. Good to see you. And we'll do oil for Valley Grow before we flip over to the private. But one thing to know about, first of all, it's an election year, and the incumbents want the market to look good, and they do have a lot of control over the market. So price is going to continue up most likely. Now, price might need to range a little bit before it goes up, but it might not need to. The amount of money that gets thrown into these things, it's unimaginable how much control they have over these markets right now. Now, and they'll have it until they don't. And when they don't, look out. It's going to be quite a day. But in the meantime, I don't imagine this is, it's probably just going to head up. It might take a minute to get started, but I think by the time September, hits, will be well past 50. I think by the time the election hits, we'll be close to 6,000, if not already there. Oil, on the other hand, let me look at Brent crude. Brent crude bouncing. It's just bouncing around. Let's remove some of our old notation. Brent crude not really doing anything. It's just bouncing around in the in the ranges that it's created. It was from 70 to about 88 is the big range, and there is kind of a little bit of a mini range in which it might be continuing here. So I would be looking at crude to just not really do a whole lot. It's just bouncing around. It might head up to 84, reject, might head down to about 70. Let's correct this a little bit. Let's say about, maybe 76 and reject back upwards. So I'm not seeing, there's not really a lot to talk about with oil. It's just bouncing around. It's bearish high time frame, but very slightly bearish. There's no volatility right now. So basically the price, it's a little bearish, but without volatility, it's just not going to go anywhere. In fact, if you were to, look at some old school kind of diagonal trend lines, you're looking at what appears to be a symmetrical triangle forming, which means that if this did form like this, if this symmetrical triangle continued, it means the energy is dying off, and it's a 50-50 whichever way it goes. So I'd just be, doing short-term trades on oil. Really not a whole lot to take a look at. Brad, we'll look at gold inside the private group here. So I'm going to have V the Guerilla, sir. How you doing?
Hey, good morning, guys. How are y'all?
Doing good. You just got in as we're about to flip over to the private group.
Perfect timing. Guys, follow us over to the private group. Join us over there where you get hard-hitting insights and further in-depth analysis right here at algofactory.tech for less than the price of a bottle of water. With that being said, Cowboy, let's go. Let's get into it.
Join us or die.